This is Revolutionizing Recruitment with Kathleen Duffy, the art of attracting, acquiring, and retaining talent. Here's Kathleen.
Thanks for joining me as I conclude my conversation with Jennifer McClure, the CEO of Unbridled Talent and Chief Excitement Officer of DisruptHR. Jennifer, in part one, we talked about everything that you've learned over the past 25 years in HR and talent acquisition. But I really wanted to get your take on networking, and in particular, networking for women. I found that women are notoriously bad at networking, and it's because they have their day job, but most of them are also primary caregivers. And the common complaint that I hear is that they just don't have enough time in the day to network. Do you find that with women as well?
You know, at my advanced age and years of experience, I can honestly tell you, as you're saying that, I don't know that I've ever really considered that. It's probably true, but I think your point is valid that I'll give myself a little bit of an excuse for, going 20 years without networking. I was a single parent, so the idea of going to an evening cocktail hour or something was not only not appealing, it wasn't possible, but there was no excuse for not going to the 12 o'clock noon, professional association meeting. So yeah, I think there's probably something to be said about that women are taking care of a lot of different stakeholders in their lives. And so the idea of doing it, unless you're really wired as that extrovert who gets your energy from doing that, I think a lot more people are introverted than realize it. And people think of introverts as people that are shy, and that's not necessarily the definition of an introvert. An introvert just gets drained by people interaction. So I have to manage that. I'm a professional speaker now, so I lived my life before COVID going to conferences and events with thousands of people and speaking in front of thousands of people, and you come off the stage and everyone wants to talk to you, and then they want you to come to the cocktail hour. And I love all that. But at the end of the day, a lot of times I don't go to the cocktail hours because I'm wiped out. I need to go back to my room and just look at my phone, and not talk to anybody. So I think some of it's probably a lot of things, but that's interesting. I'll have to think on that. I don't disagree with your assessment, but I've not really considered it.
Yeah, I've been trying to get them to just take a step out, and a lot of them are, participate in your, your professional association. So take baby steps. You don't have to go out there and, be on every single board that there is.
There's so many opportunities to build some really good relationships, quality relationships online, and to participate in, whether you call them networking activities. I personally was just saying earlier this week, I'm so over Zoom.
I know.
And the idea of a Zoom happy hour, if I were a corporate employee that's trying, their boss is trying to have Zoom happy hours, I'd be like, this is the worst ever. But I know that's unique to me. But there are still opportunities, I think, whether even it's like Twitter chats or just commenting on people that you admire, respect, or you want to get to know better on their threads or the information that they shared. There's a lot of ways. Things have changed, but literally the strongest people in my network now, it's not a lie. If I pick 10 people that I really think are my strongest relationships, probably 8 of them are people that I met on Twitter or through their blogs 10 or 12 years ago.
Interesting.
And some of them I didn't meet in person for years. My best friend now I met because I started reading her blog. And I didn't meet her in person for probably 2 years after that. And we don't live in the same city.
Wow.
So, you're able to, there's a whole side, and you listen to that intentional networking podcast, I probably mentioned it in that. There's a whole side to relationship building that can be done by being a good student. Pick somebody that you want to get to know better. If they're sharing content online, or if they have a newsletter, or if they're on a social network, just engage with them there and find ways, back to Zig, find ways to help them. It's interesting to me. Someone that I met during that transition period, it's been what? So that was 2005. So we're 16 years removed from my transition networking period. Someone that I met during that time and I've stayed in touch with, he's a marketing professional. Just last week, I had posted on LinkedIn that I'm doing my first in-person, session next week at the Greater Cincinnati HR Association. It's their first in-person meeting back after COVID. Hopefully we'll still be able to do it. And I posted, I'm really excited to talk about, preparing for impact and leading in the future, the new future of work. And just out of the blue, on LinkedIn, he sent me a message and said, Jennifer, I read this article about leadership that it may be helpful to you as you prepare for your presentation. That is perfection. Perfection. Number one, he's paying attention to what I'm doing. He sent me something with the opportunity to potentially help me and didn't ask me for a thing. That's networking. And you can do that without going to a cocktail hour.
Fantastic. And I did my first in-person presentation a couple of weeks ago. It is so great to be back. And I'm hoping that it'll continue to get a little bit better
as a
before
speaker,
it gets too worse.
Yeah, as a speaker, I know I'm not supposed to make it all about me, but I might have to be giddy for a minute on stage. I'll be like, guys, we're here. We're doing this.
I had bought a new jacket last year, and so it was the first time I was wearing it, and I hadn't even been able to open up the pockets yet. So that's how I started it off, and that's how giddy I was. So I want to go back into your career again, and I want to talk about, you started Unbridled Talent in 2010, and that's where you do everything from talent strategies, leadership development, and personal branding. But I want to talk about 2015 when you added DisruptHR. Mm-hmm. And I'm a little familiar with it, and I'll tell you why. But for those that are not familiar, can you tell us about DisruptHR?
Sure. Prior to COVID and now starting to come back after COVID, it's a live event held in your community. And if there's not one held in your community, you could organize it, where speakers give 5-minute talks with the 20 slides that automatically advance every 15 seconds. And it can be about anything related to work, and that is loosely interpreted. My first DisruptHR talk was about awesomeness, which is totally work related. So we, it started in Cincinnati here in 2013, actually, and it goes back to kind of the theme of what we're talking about. I was 2013, so in my own business, knowing that I need to be out in the community building relationships and maintaining relationships. So I was attending my local HR association meeting, and I noticed someone who was new that I didn't recognize, who was trying, to go around and meet people and talk with people. So I made a point to introduce myself to him. And turns out he was a young entrepreneur with a product, an HR technology product around embeddedness and employee engagement. And he had just started, but he already had some pretty major clients like, I know Procter & Gamble, Macy's was one. They're here in Cincinnati, and some other pretty high-profile brands. But he was at the meeting, not an HR person, not even a tech person. He was just an employee who had an experience and had an idea. And he's a serial entrepreneur now, but he was there to try to interact and meet people that would, not to get customers, but to understand his customers. So I was impressed by that, and he asked if I would be willing to just meet with him periodically and advise him. And I said, sure. And so we would get together maybe once a quarter or every 6 months or so. And I love him because, like I said, he's an entrepreneur through and through. So you can't say I'm thinking about this where he doesn't like whip out his little notebook and start saying, well, here's how we could do that. And we could do this. And you could make $1 million. So you like to talk to people who validate all your ideas like that. And so
right.
we had a lunch where it was kind of getting an update. They had won a pretty prestigious award at the HR Tech Conference. And so things were going good for his company. And he said, well, what's new with you? And, you about 3 years into this speaking thing, how's it going? And I said, I'm out there and I'm speaking at 40, 50 conferences a year. The majority of them are in the HR recruiting space. And I see a lot of the same people on stages at these different conferences. And I hear a lot of the same talks, the same ideas. And I said, not being critical of that, because nobody else is going to 40 or 50 events a year. The average practitioner is probably going to one, their state conference or the annual conference. So I'm not saying that the conference organizers are doing it wrong. And I also know from their feedback that they continue to get requests for the same talks and the same people. And as long as that's me, that's great. When he asked, what I was thinking about, I said, I'm thinking that someday I would like to hold an event here in Cincinnati with some of the people that I've met all along the way, but also offer the opportunity. I know there are people out there that have ideas that need to be heard that aren't getting invited to speak on a conference stage or aren't willing to go through the call for presentations process. Or if they do, they don't have a speaker video or evaluations to be able to show for it. I'd love to have an event where people are able to share ideas from all different walks of life. And he whipped out the notebook and he was just like, this is the best idea ever. And it turns out he was the community organizer for Ignite events at the time in Cincinnati, which those are community events where the Ignite format is the 5 minutes, 20 slides, 15 seconds. So he, had that experience, and he kind of left that meeting and then called me a week or two later, and he said, Jennifer, I'm just really excited about this idea you have, and my team and I have been talking about it, and we think this would be something that, my company could sponsor, and that would help us to get word out about our product. But, with your network and my network, I think we could have some really cool people. And so we did. December 2013, we had speakers from the gamut of a local Vietnamese restaurant chain owner. We had a local politician who didn't talk about politics. He talked about recruiting young talent to Cincinnati. We had an HR leader from Procter & Gamble, and I've lived in Cincinnati for over 25 years, and they don't come out in the wild. So to have one of them give a talk was like a whole big deal. So it was a great mix, and that's where I gave a talk about awesomeness, and Chris gave a talk about big data. And we had a great time. It was at a local brewery, free beer, ping pong tables, cornhole. People were sitting at picnic tables, and it was just a lot of fun. And a friend of mine from Denver was in the area, so I made her come. And after the event, she said, I'd like to do this in Denver. Would you guys help me? And so we did. And then I think the videos got put online, and then I had someone in my network reach out to me who lives in Vancouver, and Chris had someone in his network from New York say, we'd like to do, and so it just one by one, after about a year and a half, we had about 14 cities around the world where we were just helping people put on DisruptHR events. And we said, this looks like, maybe this is a thing that people want to do. So we built out the website, spent a little of our own money to do that. And then after a while, started charging a small licensing fee just so we could, number one, keep up with who was organizing events in what city. And also, it's a $500 annual licensing fee, so we're not getting rich. Really, it's very, not a lot of rules. Just 5 minutes, 20 slides, 15 seconds. Ideally, something about work. We love it. I love it in particular when people who've never spoken before are challenging themselves to get up and give a talk, sometimes with much nerves and trepidation, or sometimes they do it badly, but maybe they have fun with it and they laugh and people have a good time, and the audiences are very forgiving because it's fun, and they're usually in the evening at a bar or a comedy club or a theater or something like that. So it's both networking and the opportunity to meet like-minded people. And we really encourage organizers to look for speakers, not just in HR recruiting, to try to bring people in who maybe they're in IT or marketing and they have a perspective on the workplace that we're not hearing because we've been listening to the echo chamber. So I am the Chief Excitement Officer because it's really my job just to cheerlead our organizers around the world with putting on these events. And prior to COVID, we had 158 licensed cities in 37 countries, and over almost 6,000 DisruptHR talks had been given. The videos are online on our website, disrupthr.co. So you can go there and watch a video, and it'll be really bad, and you'll wonder, what is this DisruptHR thing? And then you might watch one that's really good and gives you an idea. And I think if you just consider that an event is typically 12 to 14 speakers, and if you walk away with one idea after hearing from 12 to 14 people, then that's a win.
So I didn't realize that it all started in Cincinnati.
Yeah, we just thought, Jennifer wanted to have a fun event with different people, and Chris knew how to make it happen. And so we thought we'd do it here in Cincinnati, and people enjoyed it and wanted to take it elsewhere. So it kind of got away from us. So here we are, we had to pause our licensing process for nobody was able to hold events for a year. And as I said, they're starting to come back. And we were reaching the point where I'm a volunteer, I don't get paid, but I do all the video uploading. I do all the website updates. We do have a VA that works 5 hours a week doing 3 specific things. Because we don't really we didn't set it up to be a money making business. And I'm both glad in a way, because I don't want to run it like it's a for-profit business. I want to run it like it's for the community and basically support other people in having great events in their city and not really be worried about what we're doing to monetize. Now, having said that, 7 or 8 years in, it would be nice to monetize a little bit more so that we could hire somebody to do the stuff that I'm doing. So we were headed down that path pre-COVID. We actually were going to have our first DisruptHR XL event in Las Vegas and partner with Unleash. They were having a conference in Las Vegas. And so we were going to invite 10 or 12 of the best DisruptHR talks to come and give a stage there. But yet we weren't going to have to rent out a venue in Las Vegas to do it and have all the tech and everything.
Right.
And of course that didn't happen. So, that would have been an opportunity to really flip it into another gear. And who knows, maybe those types of opportunities will come back, but
I'm sure that they will. I'm sure they will. Well, I participated in a DisruptHR event in Phoenix in 2016. And
in the very beginning, yeah.
In the very, very beginning, right. And so I have to tell you that really what that did for me, just so that you know, is that it really kicked off my journey to be able to go start telling the story of recruitment research as an alternative to contingent or retained search. And that led to, writing the book and being able to really educate people on recruitment research. So thank you very much for all that you guys have done too. And as a matter of fact, I, looking at the website, and again, it's DisruptHR.co. It's amazing how many cities and countries are participating in all of this. So I looked at who the organizers are in Phoenix, and I've just connected with all of them. So I look forward to learning more about what their plans are for here.
Yeah, and again, if you look at Phoenix in particular, the original license was held by someone who really wanted to offer an alternative to the local SHRM chapters. And people ask us all the time, are you competing with SHRM or hacking HR or any of these other? No, we're not. I think there's room for everybody and room for, our events are different than SHRM events. But now the license is held by a gentleman that I met through somewhat another relationship, introduced me to him to be a guest on his podcast. He's a sales guy. Eventually he I think I was a guest on his podcast 2 or 3 times, and just have a good relationship with him. And the Phoenix license became available, and he reached out and he said, I think this would be fun. So that's what I love about DisruptHR. He's a sales executive who saw a great opportunity to continue doing something that brought business people together and was fun. So, I love the experience over the last several years of talking to people who've not only become license holders, like Mike Simmons in Phoenix, but also a lot of people who maybe never did pick up the license, but I'm having conversations with people in like Fiji and Bora Bora and Siberia. And, I just kick myself. I'm like, wow, today I had a conversation with somebody. One was Bemidji, Minnesota, where I'm like, I've never heard of this place. Where is it? We have to bring to Bemidji, Minnesota. And then I talked with an HR leader in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, which if you ever watched Ice Road Truckers, they were always on the way to Yellowknife. And I'm like, tell me more about this.
Yeah.
So to just have those conversations, it's really provided me an opportunity to meet, to talk to people, even like I said, if they didn't move forward or not. But it's also been interesting to hear people in Australia, people in Russia, people in Europe, people in Canada, people in the, various parts of the U.S. Whenever I'd start the conversations with them, I'd say, well, why do you want to bring DisruptHR to your community? Their answer is almost always some version of, we're so behind here. And I'm like, if we're all behind, who's ahead? Because everybody around the world's saying they're behind. So it probably means we're all doing just fine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is interesting to hear how people in other parts of the United States, but even just the world, do business. And I find those are interesting. We talked about your podcast, Impact Makers, and I've loved the diversity of guests that you've had on your show. But I'm wondering, do you have a dream guest you'd like to have on your show?
Michelle Obama.
Oh, yeah.
That would be, Michelle Obama, Oprah, of course. But, I didn't want to go like everybody else with Oprah. But Michelle Obama would be a great guest. But as far as like an industry-related person, Laszlo Bock has always interested me, the former people operations VP at Google, who now has his own company. And he wrote a book, and his company's pretty interesting that he has now. So he's, again, I think I've interacted with him enough online in a respectful way that if I reached out to him and asked him, he probably would do it. But I'm working up my courage on that one.
Okay, well, I believe in you. I believe. Yeah, I believe. Well, listen, our time is almost up, but I cannot let you go without asking what the backstory is to Diet Coke, cupcakes, and horses.
Oh, you've got three of the vital components of my personal brand. It's Diet Coke, cupcakes, horses, and Keanu Reeves.
Oh, I didn't hear the Keanu Reeves.
It's too many, not enough room characters in my bio for that. I've got a Diet Coke right here. And so wherever I travel around the world, it's usually a quest, especially if it's a Pepsi town or a venue. Then you get up in the morning at people now, that's why I said, it's your personal brand when like the SHRM annual conference, which I've spoken at every year since 2014. I'm grateful to be able to do that. And almost always once the venue's announced, people will send me a message or something and go, oh, Jennifer, it's a Pepsi facility. You're going to be in trouble. So I just have to plan accordingly. But I get up in the morning, at my hotel or wherever I am. And if there's a Starbucks kiosk or whatever at the conference venue, there's like a line, all the way around the block. And I'm looking for a CVS or a Walmart or somewhere nearby to go get my Diet Coke because that's my fuel. I don't drink coffee. I was over the pandemic. I think one good thing that came out of that is I've gotten my Diet Coke habit down to 2 a day now.
Oh, good girl.
And I think I'll try to stick with that. Cupcakes were in the beginning when I was traveling. I love to travel. It's part of why I do what I do. But there were 2 or 3 years there in the beginning where a thing called Foursquare was where, you check in your location. Mm-hmm. And so I would land in a city, and if I had an hour or two, I'd look up cupcakes on Foursquare. And if I could walk to it or Uber to it, I would try out cupcakes in every city that I could go to. And I took plenty of pictures of cupcakes and shared them online. So what ultimately ended up happening, again, when I talk about personal branding, it's one of the workshops and talks that I give. When I spoke at the SHRM conference one year, I'm telling the story about cupcakes, and I have a story about that's part of that. And someone in the audience, a friend of mine, actually stood up and walked to the front and handed me a cupcake that he had brought for me.
Oh.
And I was like, this is when it's part of your brand that people pay me in Diet Cokes. They'll come to conferences that I'm speaking at and bring me a 6-pack of Diet Cokes. Or they'll walk, every year at the SHRM conference, the SHRM Foundation has a luncheon and they always have cupcakes, and a friend will get me 2 and bring them to me. So, it's something that people, send you messages of pictures of cupcakes.
So you're a brand authority on cupcakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing with horses. I'm all about horses. I have 2 of my own and obsessed with them. And so, like I said, people will send me memes of horses or whatever. And when Keanu Reeves comes out with a new movie, people will send me the reviews. And so I'm like, I think my personal brand is pretty solid. When people start sending you messages because something you like is in the news and they associate you with it, you're doing it right. Now I just need to translate that to things that I actually get paid to do. And my personal brand should be about leadership and people strategies.
Well, I'm thinking, Coke should be just having you be their brand ambassador out there.
They should.
That's right. Well, we'll work on that, Jennifer. So before we go, Jennifer, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best place to find all things Jennifer McClure is this particular Jennifer McClure, not the photographer that has the .com. Don't go there. JenniferMcClure.net. And you should be able to find both my podcast, Impact Makers with Jennifer McClure, which is probably going to be going through a rebrand and a name change here coming up, but you'll be always be able to find it on the website. I'm on LinkedIn, Jennifer McClure. It was early there, so you should be able to find me, and on Twitter at Jennifer McClure. And then for all things DisruptHR, disrupthr.co.
Jennifer, thanks for joining me on my podcast today. It's been fantastic visiting with you, getting to know you. I look forward to continuing our conversations, networking, and hopefully helping some others.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to get to know you a little better. I look forward to continuing to learn from you as well.
Thanks again. Her name is Jennifer McClure, the CEO of Unbridled Talent and the Chief Excitement Officer of DisruptHR. And that's it for this episode of Revolutionizing Recruitment. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I'd love if you left me a review so more folks like yourself can discover the show. Until next time, take care.
This has been Revolutionizing Recruitment with Kathleen Duffy. To connect with Kathleen or to learn more about recruitment research, go to duffygroup.com.